welcome back to the Real Zero podcast with me, Daniel Grant.
And me, Hugh Montgomery.
Hey, Hugh, how's it going today?
Not so bad, busy as usual, sort of worsening data coming in pretty much every day on climate and so forth. We're seeing the sort of mounting cost of as we're recording this, of the Palisade fires in California.
Yes.
We're now through 4 million tons of carbon dioxide released already and still going up. So, maybe they'll notice now.
Do you think anything good is going to come from the Palisade fires? Is there any change in mentality or anything like that you think might happen now?
No, I don't think so. I think the problem is everyone's already starting to use it as a political football. You know, they're trying to blame the fire chief, saying that she was chosen because of her sexuality, and the Republicans are going after Democrats for that, and then they're going after them for saying, well, you decommissioned a reservoir at the wrong time. And, you know, the problem is these are not easy things to fix for a politician. You know, when you've had 14 years of drought, 2 years of heavy rainfall and lots of stuff grows, and then you get another drought with 3 centimeters of rainfall and it catches fire. I mean, you're rather stuck, aren't you?
You are. And, well, Hugh, let me give you a very tortured segue. Do you think many clothes got burned during those fires?
That is the most tortured segue I've ever heard, but I bet you a lot of clothes did, Dan.
Great. Well, would you like to introduce our guest today, please?
Well, I'd like to let my guest introduce himself. So, Tom Dawson, tell me who you are, what you do, and how you came to be doing what you're doing.
Oh, hi. Yeah, hi, Hugh and Dan. And yeah, great to be here. So, well, my background is clinician.
You're a doctor?
Doctor, started out in emergency medicine. Before that, did some clinical biochemistry. But my roots are in New Zealand, as you can probably tell by the accent. And I grew up on a market garden with a love of the land, very much growing stuff. And so all of this stuff has a big impact on me, and it's really shaped my professional life as well. But my life as a doctor through to emergency medicine, then sports and exercise medicine, and ended up in Oxford for my sins, and teaching science medicine of athletic performance, and then transitioned to industry. And since 2010, I've been involved in developing technologies with very much a sustainability bent.
Right. And what's the current technology or company? What are you doing now? What's your focus?
Well, the focus was due to a very unfortunate event called the pandemic. So in 2020, we were really established to address the massive issues that were uncovered. Everyone can remember the problems we had with PPE.
Yeah, protective.
Gowns and etc. Not that they were effective as we know, but certainly masks were certainly very effective. There was a shortage of them. Healthcare workers were up in arms. Nothing was getting there. People were paying far too much. So what it identified was a massive issue with supply chain resilience, the global just-in-time economy, also massive amounts of waste and emissions generated, but not just by PPE, even more so by things that happen every single day through the NHS and other healthcare. 1 million kilograms of waste every week gets generated out of operating rooms throughout the UK NHS.
1 million kilograms a week. It's a lot. So you're focused at the moment then on, I guess, mainly then, if it was PPE that you started with, clothing and textiles. Would that be fair to say?
Clothing and textiles, we're more of a focus on specialist textiles for the operating room.
Okay, so why should I, or Dan, why are you remotely worried about the carbon cost of that very fine jumper you're wearing, or has that ever crossed your mind?
I haven't really given it any thought, to be honest.
Well, I have to say...
But now I will. Go on.
No, I'm pretty good at knowing the carbon cost things, but I'm looking at myself with a wool jacket, which is pretty old, a woolen jumper, pair of chinos. I don't know what the environmental cost of those are. Is it big? Is clothing a big issue?
It is a big issue. So we're looking at, when we put it all together, we're looking at 10 to 25 kilograms of carbon per kilogram of clothing. It really adds up. I mean, textiles themselves are 10% of the total footprint. We talk about
total greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah,
10
globally
of the world.
We talk about healthcare being 5% and being the equivalent of the fourth largest country in the world, but double that for textiles.
Goodness gracious me. So this stuff that we all take for granted, and my parents' generation, darned, patched, stitched until it fell apart. And I have to say, I'm not good at darning, patching and stitching, but I do tend to wear clothes as Damilton till they fall apart. I'm not known for my sartorial elegance. But they were right then. We shouldn't be treating clothing as disposable.
I don't think we should be treating anything as disposable when it comes down to it. I mean, everything's a precious resource.
Because, I was hearing some data the other day that the average bit of fast fashion that's bought online now very cheaply, how many times is that used then before it's thrown away on average in Britain?
Generally under 2, but let's round it up to 2 for the generosity of fast fashion.
So 2 wears, and I think it's about 11 days, isn't it, before it goes to landfill? Because
Landfill/incineration.
Or incineration, indeed. Okay, you can...
Did you just say everything you buy, so you buy a shirt, you wear it twice, that's it?
No, fast fashion. So
This is on average. Fast fashion.
Yeah.
So this is people buying online to wear on a Saturday night.
Got it.
And they throw it away after that, or they might wear it once more, which has become an increasing trend because it's so cheap. We're not paying for the externalities, are we? That's the issue again.
No.
Okay, so I'm now convinced it's 10%. That is a lot. That's a lot. And we all have to wear clothes. So I guess we're all complicit in that as well.
Sorry, team. Just for your sake, I'm just going to move this down a little bit, get you a beautiful face in orange.
Okay. So you convinced me 10% is a lot, actually. We look at 38% for global food supply chains. That's a big ticket item. 5% in health, but 10% for clothing. That is something that I would have thought could do something about.
That's all textiles. That includes furnishings, carpet, and shoes as well. So they all come together to form that. If we look at textiles and healthcare, it's around 8% of a hospital footprint comes from textiles.
Yeah, because we do use a lot. We'll come to that in a minute because you and I both work in hospitals and it is a big cost. What about the cost to maintain them though? Because I have to say I try really hard. It might look a bit scruffy, but I try not to wash my clothes too often, external layers, so I don't get too smelly, but I'll put up with the odd mark on them. And I try to wash things at room temperature in the washing machine and so forth. Is that a meaningful thing to do? What's the cost of me cleaning my clothes? Because I get an electricity bill, but I can't differentiate what's coming out from the lights or the electric cooker or the washing machine. Is it a big cost to heating up water and washing clothes?
Yeah, it's a significant cost. I mean, if you're actually heating water, we've estimated for the NHS, I don't have for the home, it's about £90 million a year it costs to heat the water for thermal decontamination for
just washing clothes. 90 million?
£90 million.
Crumbs. And so at home, my costs, I don't know actually, what is the cost of running a cycle if I'm silly enough to run it at 70 degrees or 60 degrees?
I'd hate to think, yeah.
It's been multiple pounds, isn't it?
Significant.
Multiple pounds, with a lot of CO2 emissions as a result.
Yeah, you're probably looking at about £5
Okay.
£5.
Because heating water, as we say, is energy intensive. All right, so we can at home wash, because I certainly do, clothes at room temperature of 30 degrees, right? Are there other advantages other than carbon emissions? Do the clothes last longer if you wash them at room temperature than if you wash them at 70 or something? Does it make no difference?
They most definitely do, and it's important to note the chemicals that you're using as well. So if you're utilising the chemicals that you're utilising, worthwhile having chemicals that will not cause problems downstream, because we know one of the greatest saviours for us is is marine life. So as far from a mopping up carbon perspective, so we don't want to be poisoning the marine life anyway. So we need to look at the chemicals we utilise chemicals that actually specifically says for cold water washing. It has been optimized for cold water washing.
Okay, so look at and presumably we can get a more natural product, I guess.
If you look at, say, if you're going for a bio, look at enzyme based ones, look at biodegradable, phosphate free as well. So we all know, well, maybe not everyone knows, but there's a problem with our waterways in the UK.
Right.
There's too much nutrition, they're dying. as well as the discharge of sewage into the waterways. Yeah, this just amplifies all those issues. So phosphate-free, biodegradable, readily dissolvable. Have a look at the labels. Makes a big difference.
And low temperature, and my clothes will last longer, and I'm saving money, less carbon emissions, and I'm not polluting the waterways.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's
I just jump in, Hugh.
Yeah.
Because I know a few people listening at home, they will be looking at the labels and things like that. But are there any, where no one's affiliated with any brands here, but are there any brands that do it right?
No. So I think most brands do have an option to do it right. If we can move away from highly concentrated or even the dry tabs as well. So there's a variety of different things that you can utilize. Because we create our own laundry products, we tend to use those. So
right. So but there are some brands of clothing that I think outside the washing, which we might try and support a bit more. I mean, Patagonia, for instance, has now put their money into a trust and will send us clothing back, and they'll repair it for you and send it back to you, and they don't charge you for that. So this is you buy it, and they will keep it going for you. I guess we would support things like that.
Support things like that. Circular Textiles Foundation. So anything that has the Circular Textiles Foundation mark on means that material that's being utilised, it's being preserved.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Now, so we've got our domestic life sorted out. We're going to try to keep using stuff and repair it. We're going to wash at low temperatures. We're going to get the right detergents. But surely it's a bit different in hospital, right? Because I'm unlikely to die because there's a germ on my jeans. But in a hospital, there are lots of nasty bugs floating around. So surely we have to boil wash stuff, essentially. We have to heat them all up. Is it 72 degrees we're meant to be using? Up north of 70. Surely that's essential, isn't it? Or is that not true?
Well, there's a couple of standards. Well, not standards, but technical requirements. One is 65 degrees Celsius for at least 10 minutes. The other is 71 Celsius for at least 3 minutes, which is pretty hot.
It is, but is that necessary?
Well,
in most cases,
increasing research to suggest that it may even be causing problems. Even though it can disinfect, it kills the bugs. What does it actually do to the dirt? Now, there is evidence now that the fats and the proteins that are on these materials get embedded onto these materials with the thermal decontamination. So what you end up doing is you end up having something that comes out with no bugs on it, but it's got a lovely roast meal that you put into a healthcare environment. All the microbes in the environment,
on it,
like fungi, bacteria, they come in there and they create these communities, and they're called dry biofilms.
Okay.
So when you then look at doing an audit of the different textiles, you can actually find evidence of these dry biofilms out in the healthcare environment. Yeah. And if that goes then against, say, for instance, a patient who's got burns, somebody who's a spinal patient who's got skin they have to really turn, they're susceptible to bed ulcers, this can cause big problems.
Because I have to say, it has always been a concern of mine. I've never really quite understood this, that we can touch a patient and we manage that quite easily by washing our hands with soap and water. So we've got someone with diarrhea, particularly, that might have spores from something called C. diff, which you don't want to spread around, nasty viruses, norovirus, for instance. You wash your hands with water and a bit of soap. And the water isn't 70 degrees. I'm not incinerating my hands in it. It's cold or it's warmish. And I wash and no one's worried about me spreading the infection if I wash my hands properly. I might have had my hands, without getting too graphic, you know what it's like on intensive care. You do find yourself with your hands in things that you perhaps would otherwise have wished you hadn't. But I don't spread infection that way. No one's worried that I will, because I wash my hands well with soap and water. Surely the same would apply with a textile. But if it's being rinsed around in a drum with gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of water and repeat wash, rinse cycles with a detergent in it, it should be every bit as safe, should it not?
Indeed. In fact, yeah, even in the important thing here is not about disinfection, it's about cleaning. And when you naturally clean things off, you're actually removing any of the microbes as well. Plus, you're also removing the dirt.
So it sounds
exactly what you're saying.
We've now got our plan for ourselves at home. We're going to buy stuff, repair it, look after it, wash it, perhaps a little less frequently, use cold wash if we can with the right detergent. In hospital, it sounds like we need the powers that be to start looking at this much more seriously, because as you've said, there's a huge cost saving here if we could wash things at lower temperatures. There's a big CO2 saving if we can do the same thing, and there won't be a compromise, if we're right, in patient safety. What about then these?
In fact, more than that, there could even be an improvement in patient safety. Don't want to state that or have to do an awful lot, but he would like to see equivalents at least.
Okay, so now talk me through then how you might change things. So let's imagine I'm a surgeon. Thank heavens I'm not. I have trouble with a knife and fork and an evening meal. But imagine there I am, I'm scrubbed up and I've got my gown on and my hat. What currently happens when I finish the operation to that stuff? And how could that be changed?
Well, what currently happens, well, most of the time in the UK, is what you've got on your hat. Many disposable hats. There are some reusables coming in, but most of the time it goes into a clinical waste bin. So you take your gown off, the drapes that are on the patient, the hat, they all go into a bin, and they get taken away, and that's incinerated. And that at high cost as well.
That's including the cotton things, or we're talking about these sort of plastic disposable. It's everything basically is chuck it in the bin and it goes.
So the surgical scrubs, the clothes are wearing underneath, they will go back to be laundered.
Then will. And what happens to those? So we've now got the plastic stuff, which is lots of petrochemicals, lots of pollution, and the chemicals being blasted to the air, which is a very good idea. And what happens to my surgical scrubs that you see on the telly? Those sort of, blue or green scrub type things. They're made of cotton, I think, mainly, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they cotton and polycotton. They go off for thermal decontamination. So 65 Celsius for at least 10 minutes or 71 for at least 3 minutes.
Even though, actually, if you've been wearing a plastic apron over the top of it, which you often will, there might not even be anything on them.
Often not.
Goodness. And what's the lifespan of, if you're doing that to these things? Do they last for thousands and thousands of uses, or does this degradation with temperature matter?
We know that high temperature degrades textiles a lot faster. It does do a lot faster. We're looking at not thousands, but we're looking still quite significant. We're still looking at hundreds of uses with these.
Okay, so what would your proposal be to fix this? I mean, what's your company doing, for instance? Because if we were to address, I guess, the material itself and the way in which we launder or clean it, there's some really big carbon savings to be had and cost savings to be had as well. So what's your solution to this?
Well, actually, there's been some real eye-openers on the journey. So like probably most of the public, I thought, wow, well, wouldn't it be really nice to make stuff out of organic cotton and do everything in a way that was sustainable and holistic and take it forward? And she very quickly learned that actually that probably wasn't the best case. The best case is to actually take something called polyester, which we know is a plastic. It's a long chain. You can take a long chain polyester, which has very, very little microfiber production from it, about 1/20th of that you'll get from cotton, and treat it, unlike they do with fast fashion and the rest of the world does, as a precious resource. So you treat it as a precious resource, you use it as many times as you can, and when it's at the end of that functional life, you use it to turn it into something else and then keep it as a long time, repurposing. So for instance, a surgical gown, once it's still very functional, convert it into an endoscopy gown, slightly less standards. Then when that's less functional, turn it into a patient gown. And when that's at the end of life, use mechanical recycling and then convert that into hollowware or the kidney bowls that get used, and they can be sterilized. So it all stays in the healthcare environment. But treat that resource, it's fossil resource, as precious. Too often people are going, plastics, oh, that's waste, it's rubbish, it's awful stuff. We need to change that conversation, that dialogue, because actually it's already out here. It's precious. We can use it again and again and again.
Now, that's really interesting, because I guess a lot of people listening to this would have thought what you said earlier on. the way, what you want is good organic cotton, and because it's natural and it's a natural fibre and all this stuff. Why is it so bad?
Well, one of the there's quite a few things about cotton. I mean, there is now ethical cotton produced, and that's really, really good. If we look at other sources of cotton, problems in local communities, there's modern day slavery, there's pressure on local water supply.
Water is a big issue, I think, isn't it?
It is a big issue. It is actually, so there are those sort of issues. But actually with cotton itself, if you're going to use cotton for healthcare, or actually anything that's more functional than just a T-shirt, you have to treat it. And you generally treat it with petrochemicals.
Right.
So there's a very interesting paper that came out, our partner and colleagues at the University of Exeter in Nature, August of 2020. So I was looking at this, and what they did is they actually looked downstream. They went into the Atlantic, and they looked inside the stomachs of sharks.
Mhm.
And they found actually that the highest proportion of microfiber was derived from cellulose, or derived from cotton or cotton similar materials. So 33%. And what was the interesting thing, because it'd been treated with artificials, it stayed for a long time, but because it had a natural element, it created an immune reaction.
Wow. Okay. So
unlike the plastics, which didn't.
All right. So now you're beginning to make me revisit or rethink things. Dan, what are you thinking and what you're hearing here?
I'm thinking it also, as always on this podcast, it sounds really interesting, and it's opening up my mind to a whole sector. Like I said at the beginning, I hadn't even considered my own clothes, let alone what I put on and throw away when I'm working in the hospital. I work in emergency medicine, same as you used to. And yeah, I guess we do waste an awful lot. I guess my questions to you so far are there people doing it right at the moment? How far down the path? Because, Hugh and I, we often ask this question at the beginning of a pod. We did forget right at the beginning of this one, but I'll ask you now. We say, how long until something, nothing changes? How long until something truly catastrophic happens to the world? And you had spoken to us before and talked about train carriages. How many train carriages do we have?
I think we could just have a look. It's already happening. And people say, if we really pull our finger out now and do everything right and stop all petrochemical extraction and do everything now, we'll be fine. We won't be fine. And I liken it to, as you said, a train. There's a long train with many, many carriages, and those trains are all those things we consider precious. There's all the plants, all the animals, all the food, all the things that we like to have. Now that train is not only careering towards a cliff edge, it started falling off the cliff edge, and those carriages are being destroyed. We know there's extinction happening all the time. The ocean is becoming acidified, which is going to wipe out massive amounts that will hit a tipping point and wipe it out.
We've had that paper we're talking as we're now the last week, that paper in Nature saying we're now looking towards 23 to 25% of freshwater species becoming extinct. Soon.
Absolutely, soon. And there's a whole lot of stuff that will follow on from that. So what we're seeing is all these carriages falling off the cliff. Now, if we really, really pull our fingers out and we work as a global community, each of us specialists in areas, working as a team, trying to save the world, we're not going to save the world as we know it. That's gone, the world as we know it. But we can probably save some stuff.
Yeah.
We need to look after each other. We need to band together, and we need to do the right thing. And it needs to come from healthcare, I think, as well.
Yeah, and so pulling you back to the original question, I mean, who is currently going down the path that you want to see at the moment? Is that happening yet? Are we stepping towards people using textiles in the right way in the healthcare environment?
Well, Austria is really they've been doing it right for quite a long time now. So the Austrians, 70% of their market is reusables. There's certainly some which are single use. You still do need some single use in healthcare. There's some great initiatives going on around, reducing PVC in the plastic tubing. There's some really good positive stuff. Italy are doing well. Italy are doing well because they put litigation in saying it has to be reusable by default.
Right.
So as soon as you start changing the law,
it
starts changing things, because then you have competition, and then someone who's got a reusable. So when
why on earth can't we do that here?
Please do.
So that would be cool. Anyone who's listening to this, that would be an easy thing to do, wouldn't it? Just legislate, because you say the prices then come down.
I was really hoping it would happen in 2024. Okay. And it's mainly because of the numbers. Yeah, because 2 times 2 equals 4 divided by 2 equals 2. So it's very circular. It's even got no in it. The Circular Economy Act of 2024 could have been a wonderful thing. We've missed that boat now, but yeah, here we go.
So, Hugh, I feel like you should speak into the camera to the people that run the NHS.
That's right. Do you need legislation on this, please? Another random thought has occurred to me, Dan. I'm too old for this. Do you ever buy stuff off Vinted, these sorts of, sell your clothes online sites? Do you know people who do?
So I don't, but I know people who do.
You do?
And eBay, yeah, for sure. I mean,
Okay, now, so I've got a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this one, Tom, but it occurs to me, firstly, if you're buying secondhand clothing, that's generally good. And a lot of my clothing is secondhand. As my jacket out there was £5 from a charity shop 10 years ago, just need a new zip, and it's been fine. Is that a good thing, therefore, the sort of vintage market? Or is it just allowing to create a space for me to buy stuff, wear it for a few weeks or months, and then flog it on to get some more money to buy new stuff? Are we just increasing the churn and worsening the problem with these secondhand clothing websites? Or are they actually serving a beneficial purpose? I don't know. My instinct is they're probably harmful, but I don't know.
Well, I haven't done an analysis, but my instinct is quite the opposite. I think they're probably very useful. There is if we can have an economy and exchange of reuse, it actually sets a mindset of reusing things, and not just clothing, but everything. And we can have an economy that supports that, because we do know that money makes the world go round. Very much so. And if we can have an economy and it's not going to landfill, surely that's a great thing.
I guess my only concern would be, and I don't know if you have a view on this, Dan, it sounds like neither of us know, but my concern is that if I can buy a jacket for £100, wear it for a few months, and I know that I can flog it on for £80 and get another new jacket, that I might buy lots of new jackets. If I bought one for £100, I'd be unlikely to want to spend another £100, and I would probably wear it out. Don't know.
I think it'd be, not. I think it's the whole the underlying market drive to push that reusable up as useful, because you're not buying it for £100 and putting it into the landfill. You're not actually getting that much for it. I don't think you'll get £80 if you spend £100.
Well, it shows how little I know about Vinted. Anyone there, looking down the camera again, if anyone knows the answer to these questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Please, yeah, please.
Dan, I'm running out of things. I think I've learned an awful lot of what I want to hear. Is there anything that you...
Yeah, I'd like to... We've learned a lot about the healthcare sector. Surely this is transferable to other sectors as well, because people listening at home, not everyone's going to be from healthcare. The things that pop into my head immediately would be things like hospitality sector, babies, and that whole mother and baby fit. What do you have any general tips or things that you've learned from those different sectors, or any other sectors like that as well, which might be useful?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot happening in lots of sectors. Anything from sanitary products through to reusable nappies, and some of our learnings in the healthcare sector can readily be taken up by the food sector. So low temperature decontamination, life sciences, and hospitality. We supported a project in Ghana, for instance, where they were processing lots and lots of fruit and then throwing the gowns away. So we supported how do you set up local manufacturing? How do you set up the washing of these clothes so you don't have to create all this rubbish all the time?
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a great week.
Oh, it's interesting that you mentioned the nappies thing. I mean, my kids, were babies a long, long time ago now, but we tried to do the right thing by getting the reusable terry nappies.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we'll take the hit on the cost because we're middle-class people and we're both doctors and we earn some money. But of course, when we looked at the cost, it was cheaper, because disposable nappies, you get through them a lot.
Yeah.
And they're bulky and they're difficult to carry around, and there's all sorts of things. But over the lifetime of a baby that's using nappies, there was no question it was much more expensive. So we had the terry nappy bucket with tea tree oil in it, which works really well. So you sort of put the nappy liner down the toilet, you put the nappy in the bucket with the tea tree oil, and it didn't smell. And then once a week, the whole thing went in a plastic bag and you swapped it for a bunch of new ones. And it was all washed in one place and brought back with sustainable transport and so forth. So I guess, you happen to raise the issue of babies. I mean, I think there are some choices there.
Yeah. I mean, I actually see it now. There's a growing thinking to reuse. I guess like everything's circular, isn't it? Like obviously in the old days, we never had disposable nappies all over the place, but now people are beginning to do some stuff. And I can think that some people would listen and they'd go, hang on a second, but is it better for me to do all that washing that you said don't do, or buy stuff in? But I think, it comes back to what you said. Well, first of all, it probably is better to use reusable stuff, but also that mindset change of reusing things in general, it just sets you off down that path, doesn't it?
It's much more important. Actually, almost across the board, reuse is better. Even with 71 degrees Celsius washing, it's still so much better carbon footprint. It's a massive the amounts for production. And the other area is menstrual products as well. We've got, Moon Cup and things like that, which just, they save money. And also, when we look at all the stuff that's going into the environment, there's so much can be done.
All right. So shall I summarize to you, Dan, as we tend to do, what I think I heard?
Yep.
You can tell me if I've got it right, missed anything. If I've missed anything, you can tell me, and if I've got it wrong, you can correct me. But I think what I've heard is that you share our concern about climate change, that the train is falling off the cliff now. This isn't for future generations. This is for us and the legacy we leave for anyone who might follow us. That the carbon footprint of textiles is really big. It's 10%, I think you said, of greenhouse gas emissions against the NHS, which is 5%, and food supply chains, it's 38%. It's a big player.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a cost to the production, shipping, manufacture of those things, but there's also a carbon and economic cost to their cleaning. That we can save money and carbon if we buy quality clothes from a brand, for instance, that might keep repairing them, that we look after them and treasure them and treat them as a precious commodity, that we wash them at low temperatures, a little less frequently if we can, but low temperatures, choosing our detergent wisely to make it ecologically friendly, that we don't necessarily have to be so scared of plastic filament clothing, so nylons and things, if they're the right ones, because there could be an advantage. So that's something I've learned too. And that in healthcare, we could save money, potentially improve patient safety, reduce carbon emissions by getting the right materials and reusing them repeatedly and repurposing them down the chain. And looking down the camera again, we're looking for a change in legislation because it's already happened in the European Union, we're told. I think in Italy, you said, to actually make that happen, that then drives down costs. Is that a sort of fair summary of?
I think the other big thing as well, especially for healthcare, is what you're doing is rather than bringing stuff in, you're actually stimulating local economies. You are employing people locally. That's a really important point. If you're employing people locally, your taxpayers' money, which has gone to the NHS, is then paying someone who's working locally. They're paying taxes locally. They're spending locally in that community. So when they may spend £1 overseas or £1 here, that £1 here probably turns into £1.50 because it keeps circulating in that local economy and stimulating the local economy rather than just going offshore. So it's a really, really important, local return on investment is really important.
Okay, now I noticed you were really good at not promoting your company. So tell us, what's your company called?
Revolution Zero.
Revolution Zero. So anyone looks up online can find Revolution Zero, and they can find you there if they're interested in your products and services or conversations about how this works. Yeah?
Well, we love conversation. We love collaboration. So absolutely.
Wonderful. Dan, I think that's us done.
That is us done. Tom, thank you so much for coming in. It's been really insightful listening to you talk all about textiles. I've learned an awful lot, and
me.
Hugh's learned. So you need to go on get online and learn a bit more about how to buy those clothes.
I do. And Tom, thank you so much again for coming in. That was really stimulating and really educational. I learned a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, Hugh, thanks for your time. Tom, thanks for your time. And we'll see you next time on the Real Zero podcast. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
The Real Zero podcast with Hugh Montgomery and Daniel Grant. Produced by me, Daniel Grant, aka The Stealth Doctor, on YouTube and Instagram. Find out more about Real Zero by heading to realzero.earth and find out more about how you and your friends can start making a real difference today.